Imagine the entire global economy as a single, massive pie. A pie valued at over $113 trillion. 2. Now, imagine that pie is being served to nearly 200 countries. You might expect a reasonably fair distribution. But the reality is starkly different. Our world economy isn't evenly shared. It's a story of immense concentration, a great divide that shapes the lives of billions. Based on 2025 projections, just 10 countries generate an astonishing 68% of the world's entire economic output. That means the remaining 175-plus nations, home to the majority of the world's population, collectively share less than a third of the global pie. The economic output of the top 10 is more than double that of the rest of the world combined. But even within this elite club, the concentration is extreme. The global economy isn't just led by a group of 10, it's dominated by a duopoly: the United States and China. Together, their combined output is projected to be nearly $50 trillion, accounting for almost 44% of the entire world's economy. Just two nations are responsible for nearly half of all economic activity on the planet. To put that in perspective, the combined economic might of the US and China is nearly double that of the other 8 countries in the top 10, nations like Germany, Japan, and India. This gives them unparalleled influence over global trade, finance, and the technology that powers our future. A major policy shift in Washington or Beijing doesn't just cause ripples. It creates a tsunami that washes over the entire global system. This is the fundamental imbalance of our time. Roughly 40% of the world's population, living in just 10 countries, controls over 2/3 of its wealth. The other 60% of humanity shares the rest. Understanding this great divide is the first step to understanding the forces that shape our modern world, from geopolitics to the everyday cost of living. But who are these economic titans, and what makes them so powerful? The top 10 economies are not a monolithic block. They are a diverse collection of economic models, each with unique strengths and facing different challenges. They can be broadly grouped into distinct archetypes. First, you have the superpowers. The United States, an economy built on services, technological innovation, and the global power of the US dollar, and China, the state-guided industrial powerhouse that became the world's factory and is now making a determined push into high-tech sectors. Next are the export-oriented advanced manufacturers, Germany and Japan. Their strength lies in producing high-value, complex goods. But this reliance on exports makes them vulnerable to global demand, and both face the immense structural challenge of aging populations. Then we have the ascendant emerging giants, India and Brazil. India's rise is one of the most significant stories of the 21st century, powered by a young population and a world-class IT sector. Brazil's economy is built on its immense endowment of natural resources, making it a crucial supplier of commodities to the world. And finally, we have the mature European economies, the UK, France, and Italy, and the resource-rich developed nation of Canada. These are highly developed, diversified economies, but many share the challenge of sluggish growth that pervades much of the continent. This top-heavy concentration creates a fragile system. The global economy is like a monoculture, highly efficient, but dangerously vulnerable to a single point of failure. A financial crisis originating in one sector of one country, like the 2008 crisis in the US, can trigger a global meltdown. A supply chain disruption in China can lead to empty shelves across the world. And a change in interest rates by the US Federal Reserve can send shockwaves through the debt markets of developing nations, constraining their ability to grow. But this hierarchy is not static. The future promises significant shifts. The most immediate is the continued ascent of India, projected to become the world's third largest economy by 2027, a landmark reordering of global power. But looking further ahead, the future will be defined by a grand race between two powerful forces. On one hand, technology. Can aging, advanced economies use AI and automation to defy their demographic decline and maintain their economic standing? On the other hand, demography. Can populous emerging nations create enough skilled jobs to turn their demographic dividend from a gift into a genuine, sustainable prosperity? The global economic order is at a turning point. The era of hyper-globalization that created today's concentration may be giving way to a more fragmented, multipolar world. The nations that will thrive will be those that best align their technological capabilities with their demographic realities. The outcome of this race is not preordained. It will determine whether the 21st century leads to a more balanced and resilient global economy, or a perpetuation of the Great Divide. But looking closer reveals a fundamental schism within this top tier. It's not a club of equals, but a dynamic arena featuring two distinct groups: the established, wealthy, but slow-growing incumbents, and the poorer, but rapidly expanding challengers. This is the core tension driving change in the global order. The challengers are gaining ground not because the incumbents are failing, but because their economies are at vastly different stages of maturity. This creates a growing disconnect between economic reality and the architecture of global governance, which has long been dominated by the incumbents. But the gap between these nations is about more than just growth rates. It's about the lived reality for their citizens. Consequences and the future. If aggregate GDP measures a nation's power, GDP per capita measures the average welfare of its citizens. And here, the global divide becomes a chasm. The average American has an income over 30 times higher than the average Indian, even though their countries have nearly identical aggregate GDPs. 8. For a significant portion of the world, this gap is not closing. The World Bank warns that 1 in 4 developing economies is expected to remain poorer than it was before the pandemic.